curse can reach across generations. After bank manager Jonathan Ward inherits an old manor, strange things begin to happen. During his first night at the property, a beautiful young woman appears outside his door, pleading for help. Moments later, she has disappeared. Strange apparitions and unearthly sounds follow, as does the young woman seeking refuge. Desperate for information, Jonathan turns to the vast knowledge of the town librarian for help. As the dark history of the manor slowly unfolds, Jonathan begins to realize the full extent of the horror to come. Is it too late to save those dearest to him and himself? The bar was starting to empty, and most of the patrons finished their drinks and made their way out into the cold night air. Still with some hesitation, Jonathan acquiesced to Meryl's suggestion. Once they were both seated, Meryl spoke.
I am very sorry if I upset you, Jonathan. I assure you that was never my intention.
The old man shook his head. Please do not reproach yourself, he assured her. You weren't to know. Looking past her, Jonathan glanced over to where the Romany band was still enjoying their well-deserved drinks. He turned his attention back to Meryl. It's just that song, you see. I haven't heard it in nearly 50 years, and I hoped that I would never hear it again for as long as I lived. Meryl was confused by the old man's words, and her expression illustrated the fact. She desperately wanted to ask the old man to explain, but she bit her tongue, conscious of the fact that she had already managed to upset him once this evening, and she did not relish repeating the experience. In the end, she did not have to. The old man could see the bemusement etched into Meryl's face, and that, combined with the kindness she had shown him, gave him the courage to face up to something which had haunted him for most of his adult life. In that moment, he decided it was time to lay his own personal demon to rest, once and for all. Once Jonathan informed Meryl that he had decided to confide in her, she excused herself for a moment so that she could pour herself a drink, say goodnight to her staff, and thank the musicians for playing such a marvelous set. Jonathan sipped his drink nervously and watched while Mike showed the bar staff out and locked the main door behind them. The band finished their drinks and walked over to the bar to leave their empty glasses. As Meryl showed them to the door, Jonathan called out to the lead singer. "Young lady." He stood up to catch her attention. "I was wondering if I might have a quick word with you before you leave." The girl smiled and walked over to the old man's table, closely followed by the rest of the band. "Yes," she said cheerfully. "What can I do for you?" Meryl suspected that Jonathan was about to ask the young singer about her encore, so she came back over and stood next to the old man. Jonathan was visibly shaking, so he tried to steady himself by holding on to the back of his chair, but Meryl grabbed his arm and insisted that he sit back down before he started to speak, so the old man complied with her wishes and retook his seat. "I was just wondering about that song you sang at the end of your concert. You mentioned that your mother taught it to you when you were a baby." The girl smiled. "That's right. It's a bit of a staple amongst the Romany clan, as it's usually the first song we're ever taught. Why do you ask? Have you heard it somewhere before?" Jonathan rubbed his hands together as if to ward off the night cold, when in truth it was still quite warm in the bar, and a log fire which Mike had been replenishing throughout the evening was still blazing away across the room. As he opened his mouth to answer, the words caught in his throat. Jonathan turned his face away and held his hand to his mouth to clear his throat once more. When he turned back, Meryl was holding up his glass as if to encourage him to take a sip before he continued. Jonathan thanked her and took a long swallow before replacing the glass on the table.